It's a bitter pill to swallow when the very people who should be your biggest cheerleaders turn out to be your harshest critics. Imagine feeling constantly dismissed, belittled, and laughed at by your own flesh and blood, only for them to demand a piece of your success the moment it finally arrives. My name is Daniel, and for as long as I can remember, my family treated me like I was nothing more than a joke. I'm the youngest of three. My older brother, Ethan, he's 32, the quintessential golden child. Straight A's, law school, a high-paying corporate gig, even a fiancé from a well-connected family. Then there's Melissa, my 30-year-old sister. A real estate agent, always bragging about her commissions and how business is all about who you know. And then there was me, the dreamer, the one they saw as wasting his time chasing something that would never, ever happen. Ever since I was a kid, all I wanted was to make games. I'd spend hours on my old laptop, learning to code, watching tutorials, building these little indie projects. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a consuming passion. But in my family, passion only mattered if it came with a guaranteed six-figure salary. While Ethan collected debate trophies and Melissa made her first sale, I was being openly mocked for playing around on the computer. Every family gathering was the same old routine. Ethan would throw out some snide remark about me still being unemployed, never mind the freelance gigs I was doing. Melissa would chime in, suggesting I get a real estate license so I'd have something to fall back on. My parents weren't cruel, not exactly, but their mindset was identical. Success meant a traditional career, stability, a predictable paycheck. I'll never forget my dad telling me, "Daniel, at some point, you'll have to grow up." That was the moment it clicked. They never took me seriously. And it wasn't just words. When Ethan got into law school, my parents paid his tuition. When Melissa wanted to start her real estate business, they helped with the down payment on her first property. But when I asked for a small loan just to buy better software and upgrade my ancient computer, the answer was a flat, "We just don't think that's a good investment." It was their nice way of saying they didn't believe in me. I stopped asking for help after that. Instead, I doubled down. I worked nights at a local grocery store to afford the software I needed. I took on tiny coding projects, anything to keep learning, to keep moving forward. I barely had a social life, but I honestly didn't care. Every time Ethan rolled his eyes or Melissa asked, "Still doing that little gaming thing?" it just fueled me. It burned deep. Then came a family reunion 2 years ago. One of those massive, draining gatherings where relatives you barely know ask what you're doing with your life. I had just finished my first real indie game, a project I'd poured months into. It was gaining a little traction online, but I didn't dare mention it. Instead, I sat there as my mom proudly told everyone about Ethan's promotion and Melissa's growing portfolio. Finally, someone asked about me. My brother just laughed. "Daniel? Oh, he's still in his basement trying to become the next Mark Zuckerberg." The whole table chuckled. Even my parents cracked a smile. That was it. That was the moment I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't beg for their respect. I would just let my work speak for itself. What they didn't know was that my game was about to explode in a way none of us could have imagined. That night, after the reunion, I went home and worked harder than I ever had before. Every insult, every condescending laugh, every eye roll from my siblings played in my head like a broken record. But instead of letting it break me, I let it push me. My game was already getting buzz in small online communities, but I knew I had to take things to the next level. I spent endless hours refining it, fixing every bug, polishing every detail. I reached out to streamers and gaming influencers, offering them free copies. Most ignored me, but a few actually played it. And they loved it. Then, something incredible happened. One night, a well-known YouTuber with millions of subscribers streamed my game. His audience went absolutely crazy for it. Within hours, my notifications exploded. More streamers picked it up. Gamers flooded my social media, asking for updates. My sales skyrocketed overnight. I could barely believe it. The numbers were surreal. What started as a small indie project became one of the top-selling games on a major platform within weeks. I was suddenly making more money in a month than my siblings made in a year. But I didn't say a word to my family. I kept my head down, kept working, and let them believe I was still just wasting my time in my basement. Fast forward a year. The next family reunion was approaching, and for once, I was actually looking forward to it. Not because I wanted petty revenge, not really, but because I knew what was coming. I arrived late on purpose, letting everyone get settled. When I walked in, nothing had changed. Ethan was at the center of attention, droning on about some big case. Melissa was showing off pictures of her latest real estate deals. My parents were beaming with pride. "Daniel," my mom exclaimed, as if she just remembered I existed. "How's your little game thing?" Ethan smirked. "Oh, right. Still working on that." Melissa sipped her drink. "You know, there's no shame in switching careers, Danny. Real estate is always an option." I smiled, sat down, took my time pouring myself a drink. I let them have their moment because I knew what was coming next. The moment of reckoning arrived when my cousin James, one of the few relatives I actually liked, pulled out his phone. "Wait, Daniel, this is your game, right?" He turned the screen around, showing my game at the top of the trending charts. Silence. Melissa frowned. "Wait, what?" Ethan leaned in. "No way." James laughed. "Dude, are you serious? Your game is huge. I've been playing it all week. Why didn't you say anything?" All eyes were on me now. I shrugged, acting like it was no big deal. "Yeah, I guess it kind of blew up." My mom looked confused. "Blew up? What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone, casually opening my earnings dashboard. I turned the screen around just enough for them to see the number. Ethan's face paled. Melissa's jaw dropped. My parents sat there, speechless. 6 figures. From a game they all mocked. I took a sip of my drink, savoring the stunned silence. Ethan was the first to speak, though his voice completely lacked its usual arrogance. "Wait, that's not real, right?" He forced out a laugh, but his eyes stayed locked on the number. "You're messing with us." Melissa leaned over, staring at my screen like she expected the numbers to vanish. "That's a lot of money," she muttered. She quickly composed herself, then smiled in that fake, polished way she used with clients. "But it's not sustainable, right? Like, how often do you actually make that?" I almost laughed at how quickly they were scrambling to downplay it. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying this rare moment of power. "Pretty consistently," I said. "This is just from the last few months. And there's more coming in from merch, licensing deals, and some investors who reached out." I shrugged. "It's been a good year." Ethan scoffed, but I saw the muscle in his jaw twitch. "Investors? Since when do people invest in little indie games?" I didn't even have to answer. James, still grinning, jumped in. "Dude, indie games are huge right now. Some of the biggest games in the world started as indie projects. I literally just saw a news article about how companies are looking for the next breakout hit, like Daniel's game." I could feel the shift in the room. My parents, who had always politely dismissed my work as a phase, were now suddenly very interested. My dad cleared his throat. "What, son, that's impressive. You never told us any of this." I smiled, but there was an edge to it. "Would you have believed me if I did?" That hit harder than I expected. My mom looked away. My dad fidgeted with his watch. "But Ethan?" Oh, he wasn't done yet. He was processing the fact that the little brother he'd mocked for years was now out-earning him, and he did not like it. "Okay, but let's be real here," he said, leaning forward. "Money comes and goes. You got lucky. What's your plan when the hype dies down?" I just shrugged. "I have a few more projects in the works, plus contracts lined up with some major companies. Worst case scenario, I could just retire early. I smirked. Or, I don't know, buy some real estate. Isn't that what people do when they have too much money lying around? Melissa bristled. She had spent years bragging about her success in real estate, making it sound like the ultimate career move. Now, she looked like she just swallowed a lemon. It's not that easy, she snapped. You need to understand the market, make smart investments. Oh, I know, I interrupted. That's why I've already talked to some financial advisors. Figured I should be smart with my money. I let that sink in. My siblings always acted like I was the naive one, the dreamer with no common sense. Now I was showing them I had planned further ahead than either of them. Melissa clenched her jaw, but before she could say anything, my mom suddenly perked up. You know, Daniel, she said, her voice unusually sweet, we always knew you had potential. We just wanted to make sure you were making good choices. I almost rolled my eyes. But that's why you refused to help me when I needed it. That shut her up real quick. Ethan, desperate to regain control of the conversation, let out a forced chuckle. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about stability, right? You're doing well now, but can you really keep this up long term? That's why I went into law. It's a guaranteed career. James, who had been quietly watching this whole exchange like it was the best drama he'd ever seen, burst out laughing. Dude, you sound jealous. Ethan's face turned red. I'm not jealous, he snapped. I'm just being realistic. Melissa crossed her arms. Yeah, it's not jealousy. We just don't want him to think this will last forever. I tilted my head. And why exactly do you care? That was the moment the cracks fully started to show. Melissa shifted uncomfortably. Because we're family, she said, her voice overly sweet, and family looks out for each other. I didn't buy it for a second. But I knew what was coming next and I was ready for it. Ethan leaned forward, his expression shifting from fake concern to something more calculating. You know, he started, tapping his fingers against the table, since you're doing so well, maybe you could help your family out a little? There was. Melissa immediately jumped in, flipping her fake sympathy switch. Yeah, Daniel, think about it. We've supported you all these years. I let out an actual laugh at that. Supported me? In what world? She faltered for a second but recovered fast. I mean, we gave you advice. We pushed you to do something stable. If anything, that motivation helped you get here. Oh, this was getting good. I leaned back, crossing my arms. So let me get this straight. You mocked me, dismissed my work, called me a failure for years, and now that I'm successful, I owe you something? Ethan gave a forced chuckle, but I could see the irritation behind it. Come on, don't be like that. We're your siblings. Family helps each other out. I raised an eyebrow. Like when I asked for a small loan to keep my project going and you both laughed in my face? Ethan waved a hand dismissively. That was different. That was a bad investment. Now that you've actually made it, it's not unreasonable for you to give back a little. Exactly. Melissa chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. I mean, we're struggling too, you know? The market is brutal right now. I have properties that just aren't selling, and I could really use a little cushion to get through this rough patch. She put a hand on my arm, as if that would somehow convince me. Just a small loan. I'd pay you back, obviously. Ethan nodded quickly. Yeah, and law school loans don't pay themselves. You have no idea how expensive it is to keep up with my practice. A little help from you would make a huge difference. I couldn't believe the sheer audacity. So let me get this straight, I said, shaking my head. You both have stable careers. You both had every advantage growing up. And now that I've made something of myself without your help, you think I should bail you out. Ethan's smile wavered. It's not bailing us out. It's just helping your family. That's what families do. I let the silence stretch out, watching them squirm. Then I spoke, my voice calm but firm. You're right. Families help each other. I leaned forward slightly. So where was this family support when I needed it? Melissa opened her mouth, but I kept going. When I needed money, you called me stupid. When I needed encouragement, you mocked me. When I finally started seeing success, you downplayed it. But now that there's money involved, suddenly we're family again. Ethan's face darkened. Oh, come on, Daniel, you're being ridiculous. I smiled. No, I'm being fair. Melissa huffed. It's not like we're asking for millions, Danny. I took another sip of my drink and shrugged. Oh, I know. But the answer is still no. Ethan scowled. Seriously? After everything? After everything, I confirmed. Melissa's fake kindness finally cracked. You're so selfish, she snapped. We're your siblings. We have real responsibilities, real jobs. We don't have the luxury of playing video games all day. I gave her a cold smile. You're right. You don't. And that's why I don't owe you a thing. The table fell into stunned silence. My parents looked like they wanted to say something, but even they knew this was between us. Ethan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Fine, he said, his voice tight with anger. Do whatever you want, but don't expect us to be there when this whole gaming thing blows up in your face. I grinned. Oh, I won't. And with that he stormed off. Melissa followed a moment later, mumbling something under her breath. I turned back to my drink, feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I didn't care what they thought. I had already won. I left the restaurant with a satisfied smirk, my siblings' frustration still lingering in the air behind me. The night was cool, the city lights flickering as I walked to my car. I wasn't mad, I was just done. Done with their entitlement, done with their constant need to belittle me unless there was something in it for them. As I drove home, I replayed the conversation in my head, shaking my head at their audacity. Ethan and Melissa really thought they could flip the script now that I had something they wanted. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. My apartment was quiet when I walked in, just the faint hum of my gaming PC in the background. I kicked off my shoes, flopped onto the couch, and pulled out my phone, ready to scroll mindlessly until I fell asleep. That's when I saw it, a notification from a cousin's post. Curious, I tapped on it, and my stomach twisted the moment I saw my name. Melissa had posted on Facebook, "It's so sad when family forgets where they came from. Some people let money change them and suddenly think they're better than everyone else. Greedy people always fall the hardest, just remember that." Oh, she was bold. And it didn't stop there. Ethan had commented underneath, "It's crazy how money makes some people forget their own family. We always had his back, and this is how he repays us? Unreal." There were already a few replies from extended family, some vague, some fully on their side. That's so disappointing. I hate when people act like that. Wow, he really changed. Family should always come first. I let out a slow breath, staring at my screen. So this was their plan. When they didn't get what they wanted, they decided to publicly paint me as the villain. Classic. I wasn't even surprised. But that didn't mean I was going to let it slide. I tapped my fingers against the phone, considering my options. I could ignore it, let them talk, let them spin their story. Or I could show them exactly what happens when you try to play games with someone who actually knows how to win. I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The temptation to fire back was strong, but I wasn't going to rush into this. If my siblings wanted to paint me as the bad guy, I was going to make sure they regretted it. First things first, I started taking screenshots. Melissa's passive-aggressive post, Ethan's fake sympathy, all the comments from relatives who barely knew me yet suddenly had an opinion. I saved everything. Not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to remember this moment, the exact second they showed me, without a doubt, that they saw me as nothing more than a bank account. I scrolled through the comments again, seeing the same tired phrases repeated. Family should always help each other. Money changes people. We all supported him, and this is how he acts. I could have laughed. Supported me? Where were they when I was struggling, when I was eating cheap instant noodles every night, living in a tiny apartment while I poured everything I had into my work? Where was this family support when I asked them for just a fraction of what they were asking from me now? They had rewritten history in their heads. In their version, they had been the selfless, caring siblings who had always been in my corner. And now I was just the ungrateful one who refused to share. Fine. Let them believe that. But I wasn't playing along anymore. Instead of responding in anger, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to shut them down. I was going to walk away completely. No more chances. No more hoping they'd change. This was the final straw. I wasn't going to explain myself. I wasn't going to argue. I was just going to remove myself from their little narrative entirely. I started with my social media. One by one, I blocked Ethan and Melissa. Then I went through the list of extended family members who had jumped in to take their side, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years but who suddenly felt entitled to judge me. I removed them all. If they had something to say about me, they could do it where I wouldn't have to see it. Then I went to the family group chat. I pulled up the messages, my name already being tossed around in thinly veiled passive-aggressive remarks. I just don't understand why Daniel would turn his back on us. We were all so close growing up. He's really let this success get to his head. Some people just forget their roots, I guess. It was almost funny. The same people who barely spoke to me for years were now acting as if I had betrayed them. I didn't bother typing a long, emotional explanation. I simply sent one message: "You're all so concerned about what I owe you, but none of you were there when I had nothing. You don't get to rewrite the past just because I'm successful now. If you want to believe I'm the villain, go ahead. But I'm done with this family drama. Don't contact me again." And then I left the group. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone, waiting for the guilt to creep in. But it never did. Instead, I felt a strange sense of peace. For years, I had let them make me feel small. I had let their words eat away at me, doubting myself, wondering if they were right. But now I saw them clearly. They had never supported me. They had only tolerated me when I was struggling. The second I had something they wanted, they flipped the script, and I wasn't going to be a part of their game anymore. The fallout was immediate. My phone started buzzing nonstop. First from unknown numbers, Melissa and Ethan, no doubt, trying to get through after I blocked them. Then texts from extended family, some trying to guilt-trip me, others acting confused. "Daniel, just call them and talk it out. Family is everything. Why would you leave the group chat like that? That was so disrespectful. You're being dramatic. Just apologize and make things right." Apologize for what? For not handing them money? For not playing along with their little fantasy? I ignored every single one. And then a new post popped up, this time from Ethan. "It's really sad when someone you love lets success ruin them. We always supported him, and now he thinks he's too good for his own family. But that's okay. Karma always catches up to selfish people." I laughed out loud. Karma? If that's what he wanted to believe, fine. Let him wait for his imaginary revenge. I wasn't looking back. Days passed, and the messages slowed down. The calls became less frequent. Eventually, the outrage faded, replaced by silence. It was over, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Without them in my life, I was lighter. No more walking on eggshells. No more dealing with their backhanded comments. No more feeling like I had to prove myself to people who never wanted me to succeed in the first place. I threw myself into my work, focusing on the things that actually made me happy. And you know what? Life got better. I traveled. I met people who genuinely supported me. I built a life where I was surrounded by people who lifted me up instead of tearing me down. And my siblings? Last I heard, Ethan was still drowning in law school debt, and Melissa was struggling to keep up with her failing real estate career. The same careers they had mocked me for not choosing. I never reached out to them again, and they never apologized. Because in their minds, they were never wrong. But I didn't need their apology. I had my peace, and that was worth more than any family tie.